Hey all you heroes out there, I'm your professional protagonist, and welcome to Hell Yeah Gaming, where I'm giving my thoughts, my discussions, or, well, having a discussion on my thoughts, and all the brain exploding things that are just trying to leak out of my body regarding the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Yes. Okay, here we are. So many years later. This has been a long time in the making. Oh boy, so very off. First of all, I think that it is, fair to say that yes, this is a tremendous game. This is huge. It is so good, so good, so good. And I don't think that there's anybody that is going to come to a surprise to or anything like that. But just so everybody is aware, yes, there will be spoilers in this as a discussion of it, both from a gameplay standpoint and from story and characters, all that. So here's your warning. I don't know why you'd click on this video if you didn't want spoilers, because I think it should be pretty obvious that there's going to be. But there is your one and only warning. Here we go. So starting right off, on the day that the game launched, I streamed for a good 5 or 6 hours, and unfortunately for like the first hour or so I forgot to turn my microphone on. So the whole thing was silent. I mean, the gameplay was there and you could hear that, but my commentary so that means that all the thoughts that I was having and that I was just kind of like regurgitate, just blah, 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 mouth vomiting while playing is lost to time. No one's ever going to hear that again, and that's kind of sad. But just from the opening moments, I was absolutely hooked. And when we had Link and Zelda descending through those caverns beneath the Hyrule Castle and finding that mural, studying it, the moment that Zelda said the imprisoning war, oh my god, so many neurons had been activated in my brain trying to make connections and think of things, figure all sorts of stuff out. And transitioning there into seeing Ganondorf and him revitalizing himself and recognizing Link and Zelda, it blew my mind. I had been given so many expectations from that moment that honestly I ended up being really disappointed by, because I was hoping and I thought that we were actually going to link a lot more things together, but the story ended up being very, very good and serviceable on its own, but the way that it was kind of like repeating old events and old terms from the past just gave me a sort of false expectation that ended up not feeling super cool for me personally. But in the end, it is its own animal. Now, I will say that this version of Ganondorf, whoa, okay, first of all, I know he's a psychotic maniac, power-hungry killer, and all kinds of crazy, but I mean, could you look at him? He's okay. I'm joking. Ganondorf is my all-time favorite character in all of video gaming history. So there was some high expectations that this game had needed to meet for me, especially with Matt Mercer voicing him. And I think that most of those expectations they met and did really well with. As for how the story went, I expected things to get a lot darker. They said this is going to be the darkest one since Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess style, and And honestly, like it didn't really feel much that way to me, even as we see some of the memories of Ganondorf becoming the Demon King by murdering Queen Sonia and stealing her secret stone, using it to empower himself. It just never really reached the point where I thought it was going to be like, this is the Dark One. And it ended on what is you just absolutely unabashedly and unashamedly one of the happiest endings in the entire series. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like it was just a straight up like, this is a happy ending. This is the happy ending. Which I'm all for. I actually prefer it that way usually. But when they set those expectations and saying this is going to be a really dark game, or at least really dark for the Legend of Zelda, it just, I never felt like they pushed that far enough to really back up that claim. Now, a lot of that I'm pretty sure has to do with like Zelda's fate during the game, because getting flung back in time, several thousand years at minimum, 10,000 plus years, and then having to take the long way back home as an immortal dragon who sacrificed her mind and personality. I mean, I definitely get that. Like it kicked me in the gut seeing that. But at that same time, it was kind of like, at the end, there really wasn't any sacrifice on her part. From her point of view, she swallowed her stone and then woke up in the sky where Link grabbed her and then they fell into some water. So it's not like she even missed out on any kind of important events that she needed to take part in. Like, she did her job. She didn't miss out on any kind of relationships or events, anything. So it's one of those things where, like, initially it feels really sad, but when you take a step back and look at it, not really all that dark, all that sad. She just got to go back home from her perspective, just in the blink of an eye, much like Ganondorf's ceiling from his perspective was a blink of an eye, and he just woke up. But so, that didn't really end up hitting me the same way. If she had stayed a dragon, if she had to remain the light dragon, then I would definitely say that this is one of the darker games for sure. But as it is, I don't think it's any more dark than Ocarina of Time or anything. But then, speaking of all those expectations that I did have, like imprisoning War and Ganondorf recognizing Link and Zelda, like that felt to me like this was gonna link directly into the downfall timeline and give a definitive place for the Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. But at the end of the day, like, I don't feel like that is the case at all. Initially, I was thinking like maybe all the different events in the downfall timeline were just calamities, Ganondorf's essence leaking out and such. But then we do end up seeing that this imprisoning War is a whole other different affair from the imprisoning War that takes place between A Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time, with completely different circumstances and situations. So that, again, it just made me feel kind of and the fact that like it's all a stable time loop is very cool. And of course, the dragon Ouroboros thing was great foreshadowing to it. I picked up on that and then tried to theorize that Zelda was going to become Hylia again to become more, and that to start the cycle over, become mortal, sort of thing. So I kind of picked up on that, and that Zelda would have to make a sacrifice, and that would involve her transforming. Just who would have ever guessed that it was a literal transformation into an actual dragon, right? So I don't think there's any way to pick up on that particular detail, but I give myself a little bit of credit for that. But so I was feeling like, oh man, Ganondorf recognizes them, because Ganondorf is always the same Ganondorf. He's the same man at different points in his own personal timeline. That is his thing. The only time that there's ever been a different Ganondorf is in Four Swords Adventures, in the child timeline, after he's killed in Twilight Princess, and that's the only time he ever reincarnated. But lo and behold, no, this is very much the situation of, hey, Ganondorf has reincarnated at some point. Or has he? Or is this the original one? See, because then we start getting into the whole timeline placement, which is one heck of a situation to try to figure out here. Like, all we've ever known is that Breath of the Wild and, Tears of the Kingdom take place at the very end of the timeline. Nintendo never said which branch, or if they somehow converge together again or anything. Just, it's at the end. That's all they ever said on the matter. And now we have a lot of things to consider here. Like I said, one of my favorite theories that I saw, and that also I was I had while I was playing the game, but unfortunately that audio is gone forever, is that it's downfall timeline. And this other Zelda theorist that I can't remember the name of. If I remember, I'll try to link his video in the iCards here in the description below. Basically saying that instead of the downfall timeline occurring from, like, what if Link fails in Ocarina, it's another timeline split as a result of Skyward Sword, with the time gate being used. Their demise is destroyed in two separate ways, in the present and in the past, which could create a diverging timeline, and thus one of those is set up, and then Hyrule is founded differently in each timeline, because there's a lot of discrepancies here about the founding of Hyrule as we have known it before, and as it's displayed here in Tears of the Kingdom. And that's another big, point of contention of, like, how does this fit in the timeline? Most people that I'm seeing are trying to fit it in to say that, hey, well, the whole Zonai, King Rauru founding Hyrule doesn't have to mean that it's always been the same Hyrule. Hyrule can rise and fall, and it could just be this version that he's the first king of. To which I say, I see that, I understand where you're coming from. I personally feel like the routes that make the most sense are either that this is a complete, total new universe or reboot, or of Skyward Sword downfall timeline split, because there's a lot more that really doesn't make sense if this is just another version of Hyrule that is founded after a previous one has fallen. The points to that being, for one, I mean, the Hylia statues very much are, talking and active, despite Zelda being the reincarnation of Hylia. Of course, a lot of people say that, no, just the first Zelda was the reincarnation of Hylia, and then all the others just have her spirit or have the blood of the goddess. But at that, the blood of the goddess being passed down from the original Zelda is going to be spread out to all Hylians as the generations go by. So I don't really buy that. I feel like they all have to be Hylia reincarnated, just like all the Links are the spirit of the original hero reincarnated. That is, my personal take. But, that's just one point. Another is that, Zelda's holy powers of sealing darkness and banishment and whatnot, they're supposed to come from the blood of the goddess, from Hylia, right? But they make it pretty darn clear in this game that her powers come from her heritage as a descendant of King Rauru and Queen Sonia, being what passes on the powers of light and time to her respectively. So that's a very different origin of her powers. And then the Zonai are said to have been gods or godlike beings that descended from the sky. But Hylians also descended from the sky at one point in history, as did the Picori / Minish, as did the Ukra, as did, insert more here, because there's definitely more sky tribes that have come down. And most of them possess some sort of holy power. So I need to start wrapping this up because I never actually charged my camera and it's about to die. But so at the end of the day, I gotta say, oh well, gameplay, okay. Ultra Hand, amazing, love it, beautiful, fusing. It absolutely, completely revamps the weapon system. I did not care for things breaking all the time before. Now I'm excited to use my weapons so I can trade things out for new ones and make new combinations with monster parts and actually go kill more monsters. Really cool. Ascend, useful, but I forget that I have it all the time. Same with Rewind, Recall, honestly, as well. Super useful. Forget that I have it all the time. So I really wish that there were more abilities you could get in this one that saw more active use. And so I want more abilities or more items akin to other Zeldas, the classic formula. Which I know I'm probably going to be disappointed in that regards going forward, because Nintendo have said this open world format is their new format for the series going forward. I get that. I understand that. It does really well for them, and it's a fantastic formula. It's just not what I personally want or like. But that being said, this game is amazing, mind-blowing, absolutely. One more complaint. Hey, those dragon tears that reveal what happened to Zelda and things and the events of the past, why can't Link tell people what's happening? Because you can do that right out of the beginning, but then there's other points of story progression that are locked behind, having to investigate Zelda. Where is Zelda? But you can just be like, see that dragon? That dragon up there? It's her. That's Zelda. It's her. She's right there. She's been there the whole time. There's a lot of things that Link should learn beforehand, or should be able to inform his compatriots about, that he just doesn't. And the only reason is you probably just weren't supposed to know this yet. But it's an open world game where you can go anywhere and do anything at any time, which means that's something you have to account for. And that irritates me so much, but that's it's honestly not that big of a complaint at the end of the day. It's just a beautiful, beautiful game, and I love it. I love it. I've played so many hours into it. All of the new stages are great. They can get in the